We are back with my guest, Mr. Sanders Shiver, a member of the Commission for a White House Council on Boys to Men. And we're going to start now talking about some of the other research that's contained in the Commission's proposal. For example, Sanders, under the education component, your group makes the point that for a young African American boy, by the time he's in his mid 30s, he will, if he's dropped out of school, he will probably have a 60% chance of having spent time in prison. Could you talk a little bit about that? You mentioned it a little earlier. Could you talk a little bit about the discussion that went around that finding?
But those are the realities. You know, when you think about it, if we just go with business as it is, we're gonna stay with that data. It's gonna continue, and it's probably gonna increase because we need better opportunities for our children. And I think we have to start with parent education as well. If the parents are more involved and understand boy behavior, because boy behavior isn't unique, but it is different. And I think we get confused sometimes with discipline and all of those issues with boys. And a lot of times all it is being able to be a good listener, to understand their development and putting them in situation that will alleviate some of those things. Because you think about when a young man is going to school, from elementary school, we're pretty much okay with that because the parents are really still involved. The junior high part is when they really, it's either make it or break it, as I see it, because that's when they start to drop out of school. They start to have these friends that are gang related or all other issues that come into it, and they probably don't get to high school. And so this is real data when we talk about these young men probably would have spent some time in jail because they want to have the same life as everybody else, but without education, without opportunities to say, okay, hire me because I'm a good citizen. You know, they don't get those opportunities because of the things that they're involved in. So they do criminal activities. And this is real.
So Sanders, you're one of those successful black men that made it. You were able to get in the NFL, and as you say, young boys aspire to that, particularly when they're in the middle and high school. They all want to play football, or if they're not playing it for high school, they're playing it with their peers on the street, and they're all talking about, all the things that go around being part of the NFL, the games, the teams. They know the stats better than the commentators. So tell our listeners a little bit about the mentors for that aspect of your life when you were aspiring to be in the NFL, and how you were able to kind of stay away from some of the issues we're just talking about that would have led you in a different path.
Well, when I was growing, it was quite different. I grew up in the country. I was from South Carolina, and we didn't have the same things that these kids have. They have different attractions. I mean, with the internet, with the communication, and there's so much communicating to our kids. So there's a lot of misinformation, and I think the thing with sports, if you really look at how the NCAA and how it is set up, if you want to play sports, you have to do well in school, at least well enough where you can continue to play. And if we can stay on that path in terms of educating ourselves to where we aspire to be something other than just a football player. Football playing has to be just a means to an end. Because when I was playing and going to college, communicating was hard. We didn't have the scouts there. We didn't have all the agents hanging around. So the times now are totally different. But from what we've learned, we know now we have to protect our kids in terms of the information they get and the decisions that they make. We have to be more a part of their lives. And that's the mentoring piece. Coaches from elementary school on through high school, parents have to do more. Parents have to be more informed. And pass along real information as opposed to just the rah, rah, rah football player. Because as you know, when you get to the NFL, you're looking at probably less than 2,000 people playing football. And out of 2,000 colleges that play, which is probably more than that, that's not a lot. That's not a number that most kids are going to aspire to be. There's in Prince George's County, at 140,000 children and 20-some high schools, you're talking 3 or 4 kids in Prince George's County that's going to play in the NFL.
And so, who were your mentors? I mean, other than your parents, I mean, were there uncles, pastors?
Well, it was all that, because growing up in the South, you went to church, and I guess I liked it. I went, but
I know I've made my kids go, and they've enjoyed it. And starting little when they were very young.
That's part of the life. And I actually, my mother had 9 brothers. And so that puts you in a different situation. I was fortunate in that regard. And I remember my junior high coaches getting started playing football, and we played a lot of baseball. And so they were mentors. But I think what I learned from them was doing the right thing. That integrity comes from all of those lessons. And I took from those lessons to start, with my own decision-making in terms of being in a situation to go to college, being in a situation to play in the NFL, being in a situation to get additional education. So all of those things were started back then with good information from people that were important to me.
Now, as a researcher, I have to ask you, what was your position in the family? I mean, were you the oldest, youngest, in the middle, or what?
I was the youngest.
You were the youngest.
Of 6 children, yeah.
And who else wanted to be an NFL player?
Actually, I had a cousin that played in NFL, and that was pretty
much it. None of the other brothers?
No, I had one other brother. He never even thought about playing.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just so glad that you're able to share this information with our listeners. I'm speaking with Sanders Shiver today. We're talking about the proposal for a White House Council on Boys to Men and some of his experiences as far as the mentoring. And we're going to go back to this idea of the solution for more male teachers. And I just want to have him say a few words about that, and then we'll move on as to how you expect this to impact this problem, because we know women tend to dominate that field.
Well, I think it starts with probably the mentoring, and probably with us understanding that it's okay to be a teacher. And as we recruit young boys into early childhood education, I think it probably has to start in the 8th grade, if not lower. We're really getting them to understand the education process and the stages and the development. And I think it's an ongoing process, because as a male, we're the breadwinners. It doesn't matter if, the woman makes more money and all that. The mentality is that we're the breadwinners. That's what we aspire to be. Being a teacher, it doesn't have those indications. So we have to do a better job of getting kids to understand that it's okay to be a teacher, and the importance of having more male teachers in the classroom, along with government, along with communities. We can really come up with ideas and talk about males being in early childhood, because we can tell them, we can take this information, this research that we've done, and point to the importance of it.
Yes, and that's another voice that will be able to reach them. You also mentioned the idea of teachers being assigned to fatherless boys for multi-year periods in the proposal. What do you see as the benefit or possible concerns that the teachers might have from having that kind of proposal implemented?
Well, we get to that point because we're talking about a single family house where the mother is the breadwinner. She's the end all, the be all. She's all he sees. This young man leaves and he goes, and all of his teachers are female, and he's throughout his early childhood, they've all been female. So we want to have a group of men and people to go in and start to mentor and be a part of their lives. What's interesting, if you had a group of little boys that was standing outside the window looking in and they saw all males sitting, they'd be more curious than you could ever imagine. And for those males to become a part of their lives is simply saying hi to them or telling them what they do for a living and showing up on those campuses every now and then. That's the male influence. But assigning a male would be somebody volunteering to say, oh, yeah, I really want to be a part of this, and I can really affect these young men, by being a part of their lives, just having general conversations about what I did, how I did it, and when I did.
Okay. Now, if a White House Council on Boys to Men was established similar to the White House Council on Women and Girls, give us an example of how the mentoring program might benefit under the leadership of the council. For example, are there any particular national mentoring programs that you think of?
Yeah, there's a ton of them. We actually used, and in the writings, there are some cited. I guess we can say Young Men Ultimate Weekend Family Wellness Courts of California has looked at some ways of doing it. There's Alliance of Concerned Men in D.C., actually. Big Brothers and Sisters, the Boy Scouts of America, Boys and Girls Club. And their success leads us to thinking in terms of mentorship with them, because their leaders are responsible for these children, and they talk about integrity. They teach them things and points that are going to help them be better decision makers in the long run.
And thank you for sharing those. For our critics, what would you say to those who who say that we don't need another White House initiative? Why can't the existing programs be more accountable? And I'll just give you a couple of seconds to that, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, that's actually a good statement, but it really has nothing to do with this. You're talking about 35 plus people that got together for 18 months and wanted to identify some issues that, as a country, as a society, as a people, we need to address them. With a White House Council or without one, these are still issues. With the council, it gives us the ability to work with other people in the country.
Fantastic. Thank you. You've been listening to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanders Siver, for joining us today, and best wishes to you with your work on the Council on Men and Boys. Remember, next week we'll be discussing nursing home living. Thanks again, and tune in next Tuesday, 9:30.
You've been listening to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell. For more information about Real Talk, contact Dr. Valencia Campbell at 301-341-2247 or reach them online at valenciacampbell2003 at yahoo.com.